Today is January 6th. This is the Policy Advisory Committee. We'll start with attendance. We'll go around the room and say who's here. Andrew, we'll start with you.
Andrew Hennius, attorney for the committee.
Rob Mezzanotte, Assistant Superintendent.
Erin Earl, School Committee Chair.
Kenny Duba, Superintendent.
Jennifer Lima, School Committee member. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments. I don't see anybody here for those. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was on November 25th? Can I get a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay. Next on the agenda, as this is after an election, we always do new appointments to advisory committees. The next thing that's on the agenda is to elect the co-chair of this committee. Does anybody want to make a nomination?
I nominate Jen and Ken. Can I do it like that?
Sure.
Right? Because it's co-chairs?
Yeah.
One admin, one school committee member?
Which I think technically this one is not, but.
I still,
Okay.
I think the superintendent has to be on this one though, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you, Ken?
Yeah.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That's my nomination, if anyone wants to second it.
I'll second.
Okay.
Accept.
Jen and Ken. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all right, so, the two that we had on our Group A to be discussed today were the transportation services and the McKinney-Vento. We have guests here today to discuss both of them. Is there a preference on which one we discuss first?
Anyone time crunched? Michelle?
Okay.
Do you mind?
Lydia, do you mind?
Do you mind, Lydia?
No, I just assumed is that no? Okay.
You're so sweet, thank you. We appreciate you both being here.
Okay, so we'll start with transportation. Erin?
Yeah, just let me get in, sorry. It locked me out of my email. So in the folder, I went through, at our last meeting, we had talked about making a clean copy of the transportation policy based on all of our edits, because we had gotten pretty far with it. And then we obviously wanted to have like the appropriate constituents like look at it and partners and blah blah blah. And so what you'll find is there's a new policy. It has the real name, which is like student transportation services with today's date. And so you'll see like it mostly cleaned up, although I had a couple quick questions about some of the things that we had written previously that I didn't understand. And then at the very bottom, there was a note that we were gonna finish some work, but I know the administration was really busy, and so I just went through it and put draft language there to give us something to work on. But I'm not wedded to it whatsoever. Like you and Michelle can change it as you see fit. I just wanted to give you something to work on and be able to edit from, and so we can.
Is that all the stuff in red? Or
Yeah, so basically what I did is I turned anything that we previously talked about kind of seemed fine. I just changed it. So but I left you a copy, Jen, of like the red line version. So I just changed anything that we kind of seemed solid on, and then anything in red is either brand new, or I put a comment next to things that like I was confused about, or if something was new. So red is new as of today.
Erin, just to clarify, this is
Yep.
the Student Transportation Services, the title of this
With
one
today's
we're looking
date?
at? Yes.
Yeah.
You're the one
Okay.
that's-
Yep. Yeah, because I left the old one with all our edits,
Yep,
just because I
okay.
didn't want to, but it also didn't make sense to keep everything redlined, like it was too messy.
Mhm.
I can't get into email. Alright. So if we go kind of top to bottom on it. So the first question that I had was, well, it's not a question actually. We just had a, do you have the newest copy?
I don't.
Can we print you one? It's okay, we'll print you one.
I'll do it right now.
Robert, can you
Yeah, I'll
make
get one,
printing?
yep, yep.
Does it print in color or no?
Mhm.
Alright. I'll explain it and then we'll get it for you. So basically, when we had gone through last time, we said that we wanted to define bus trip, which we had put as defined as a school field trip, late bus, or athletic trip, basically anything that was non-school related. But then we also had a header there for bus routes. And so I took a stab at a definition for what bus routes are, but I most certainly want you to edit it and change it how you see that. Jen, I just have to step up for this for a second. I'll be
Okay.
right back. Feel free to,
Yep.
it'll be really clear what the side of this will be back. Hello?
So it looks like we ended up with bus route as being a designated path that a school bus follows to safely transport students from their homes to school and back with scheduled stop for students of all grade levels, ensuring timely and efficient service. Right, because Michelle, you had said route was how the drivers think it in their heads. Does that sound like a,
Yeah, clear definition.
and a bus trip is defined as a school field trip, late bus and or an athletic trip? Okay.
Correct.
And then, under eligibility for student transportation services, Erin has highlighted resident pupils attending the public and private parochial schools in North Kingstown will be transported to their respective schools as listed below. We changed it from radial mile to like straight mile. And then she has a note, what is our policy for opting out of transportation? I don't think we have one, do we?
We don't.
No, okay.
No.
So if someone's not going to take the bus for the year,
They'll just let us know.
they just communicate that to you.
They'll send us an email. Most parents like to have it just on the back burner, just in the event a car breaks down, somebody's ill, sick, so a lot of them don't opt out.
Do we ask them to?
No, we asked the high schoolers this year, but beyond that, no, not at the current time.
Is that something that we wanna consider doing?
That would be nice.
What if we sent something out, I'm just thinking this out, right, because it would be good for us to know for sure that someone's not taking it. And I understand the idea of, let's keep, I wanna keep my children to have the opportunity to take the bus throughout the year because they might, high school might have a car right now, but they may not later,
Right,
and
right,
they
right.
still need it.
If we're sports at one point or not, whatever.
Right. But I think we should send something out in July. So I think it's probably the earliest that we can, because June, we don't have everyone registered. But maybe around July, between July and August, let's kind of keep that open. We send a Google form out to everyone and just saying, if you are opting out of school transportation through the school department, please complete this form. And you're only completing it if you're opting out.
And a lot of schools do, I'm sorry, they do it in the late spring. So it's the high schools, thank you, that we wouldn't know anyway because of parking spots. That was kind of like the delay when we asked for the,
We also won't
high
know for
school.
any new registrants unless we make it part of the registration.
Well, and I think there's a
Could.
difference between policy too and
Just
procedure, and so I think what you're talking about is important, but probably more procedural. It's just, do we wanna put anything in the
I would
policy
just
here?
put something in
Yeah,
here that
just
the
like a
school
sentence
department will
about-
send out a opt-out form
Yeah.
to families, prior to the start of the new school year.
Yeah, I think that's,
Yeah.
that's
And then you
exactly
just
what I
add
was
that in
thinking.
right there.
Yep.
Yep.
Do you wanna just add it, Ken? Go ahead.
And just for clarity's sake, let's say I opt out at the beginning of the school year and then it's February and my circumstances change. Am I out of luck or can I opt back in?
We always have to provide transportation, so you
Yeah.
can opt back in.
Okay.
We have to
Mhm.
legally provide it. To those that qualify, that are eligible.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. That's where we got Erin.
Okay.
I think the highlighting for the bus stop, that was the language that Laura gave us, so that's why that was highlighted, I think.
So I'm gonna put this in red, or we,
What we just added
Yeah.
for today, yeah, probably, and then if we're good on it, I'll unread everything that.
put it under the comments, that way it's there.
Yep, and then so Jen, that blue, what part are you talking about, Jen? Sorry.
Under bus stop, you had a comment that said this was highlighted, did we wanna say something else? I think it had been highlighted in the last draft because this was the language that Laura had provided us.
Oh, the busy street part. No, so I was curious, so the busy street was highlighted in the last one, and I think we had like a conversation about like I remember
Oh,
Ken
yeah.
saying that that's not always possible, and so I felt like we needed to edit it. Sorry, I'll be right back.
Yeah, cause you had said like Post Road, like, and other roads, so
Right.
like, that's not feasible. But is there a way to put it in there so that we're saying, instead of should be, like,
If allowable or if applicable, I think we need to have some term in there that allows us,
to do it if needed?
Right. when practical.
Maybe not practical, like when, cause what's practical to me is not what's
Yeah.
practical to you. Not all, that was just an example, like, when
Feasible?
when feasible, yeah, when able,
When
will be located instead of should be, yeah. Or when possible, bus stops will be located, yeah.
Any legal terms you wanna put out there, Andrew? When possible, bus stops will be
Well,
located away from
I
busy
guess to
streets.
play devil's
Pedestrian
advocate, it's always
areas.
possible. Sorry, Jen.
I know, no,
You
you're
know,
right.
Because you have to, like, if you think of the families that live on,
I think
on
feasible
Post
is not a
Road,
bad,
right?
not a
Even
bad
these are
choice.
Devil's Foot Road,
Yeah.
these are busy roads, but we're not gonna also make them walk
Nope.
to another
Yeah.
area.
That's right, so
That's
feasible.
More dangerous.
How about to ensure a secure environment, bus stops will be located in the safest areas possible, and should ideally, and then we just take away the busy streets and the hazardous, that way it's just.
That's fine too, Jen.
Yeah.
Yep, that's fine.
Right, so to ensure a secure environment, we're taking out when feasible. Bus stops will, what did you say?
Located,
Will be located
in the safest area possible. And should ideally provide waiting areas that are free from obstructions. Cause we already said safe, right?
Yeah, thinking about. And should ideally provide safe waiting areas that are free from, should ideally provide. And should ideally provide waiting areas that are free from obstructions.
And hazards. Or just obstructions. Or hazards and hazards. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that's good, right, Michelle? Thanks. Excuse me.
So the next red area has a thing about transfers. For student charter bus other than their designated route and disembarkation location other than the regular bus stop, written permission from a parent or guardian is mandatory along with approval from school authorities. I thought we covered that someplace else and said that that was a no-no, or do we allow it?
Well, thought we talked about it, cause what if it has to do because of like elementary kids and daycare?
Yeah, so I think
No
we
one's gonna
need
be
to
home, and they
clarify
have
that,
to go
yeah.
to a neighbor, or
Yeah.
maybe they have to take a different bus because that's the only place they can go that day after school.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, we do it in the event of extenuating
Do
circumstances,
we have it
but
anywhere else?
That's
not
what, I
just-
think we
Right.
need to spell that out, that it's like a regular thing, not a, you know, I want my kid to go play with his friend today type of thing. I thought that it was. No, I don't think it is anywhere else, so I think we should probably. Like request for a student. Like request for a student to. Regularly, what's the word I'm looking for?
I'm sorry, I was looking to see if it was somewhere else in this document.
Like request for a student to ride a bus. Like request to deviate from a student's.
You mean like to put it as a different category?
No, I'm saying
Or-
like to phrase it differently so that it's not just, cause this says, like if I read this, this doesn't say you can only do it, you know, if it's every Monday and Wednesday, my kid goes here. Like this would be like, today I want them to go. So I think we need to spell that out, that it is, you know, request to deviate on a.
I did have that concern too, cause I felt like there was 2 different categories, and I'm sure Michelle could probably come up with 9. But like, I felt like there was the emergency one, right? Like, I'm not gonna be home this afternoon and, you know, Johnny needs to get off at his friend's bus stop instead, right? Like an emergency situation. But then also there's like, my in-laws or my childcare, and, you know, Susie's always gonna go on this different bus kind of energy. Is that?
So parents, if, say for daycare purposes.
Yeah.
If they're gonna go someplace else, we have a daycare form, it's a Google form that they fill out and they complete. And
Okay.
it comes directly to us, and that's how we set up their transportation.
That's for a regular, that's on a regular basis.
That's on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Yes.
So that's their,
In the
it's
event
not-
of an emergency, they'll typically send a note into the school, or they'll call us.
Yep.
We always tell them we have to have it in writing,
Yep.
and they'll explain their, you know, circumstances. Unfortunately, you know, dad's not gonna be at the bus stop, I can't make it, and we have nobody else, they need to take this bus. And that's the only way they get approved, and then they'll go through the school to us, and then we'll approve it.
But for the daycare one, is that them getting on Sunshine's bus, or is it them getting dropped off by our school buses at Sunshine?
Sometimes at our school buses, if they're in that district.
Gotcha.
So if they go to Sunshine
And they're in Quid.
and they go to Quid, then the bus will take them over to Sunshine. If they go to Curious Minds, come out of Hamilton, they can
Yep.
get on the Hamilton bus. But if they go from Quid to
Curious Minds.
that doesn't work.
Yep.
No. But they'll fill out a form in the beginning of the year typically if they need it for daycare purposes.
What do they do if, like, the thing with, like, they permanently need to go to Grandpa's house?
that was the form she's talking about.
No, but she said
for
daycare.
purposes.
Oh,
So
that
for
would
daycare
count for
purposes,
home
yes,
daycare too?
As long as it's in the district that the school that they attend.
Got it. So
So
that's
it's a-
even home aftercare. Got it. Sorry, I misunderstood. Thank you. So should we put something?
So I think this, I mean, it's under emergency, I think it's where it should be. This is a
Mhm.
one-day situation.
But the other thing's not addressed at all.
Yeah, I think we need to cover them both.
For daycare,
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
like
have
if,
that nowhere in here?
no, this
No.
is the only place that this is covered, like not riding your regular bus.
Yeah, so I feel like that might go with the bus assignment part. Where is that? the thing where it talks about like 30 days and, yeah, under bus routes, where it says like the supervisor of transportation would establish and maintain like bus routes, any major changes to bus routes should be, you know, whatever. I wonder if it could go there and then it would say like, if you're, like, cause it's bus routes, bus stops, and then you're asking for like an alternative bus stop basically, right? I'm just looking for like where to put it, that would make sense.
And you could put it right, the bus ride stop change request, just to have a separate category, I don't know whether you'd call it daycare or,
Yeah. It's almost like
Yeah.
alternative, like permanent alternative.
I would just put it under eligibility for
I'm
student
going through the same
transportation
thing in my mind
services,
right now, I'm
right,
coming up blank, but
accessibility,
you're not wrong.
I think it belongs under bus ride stop change request.
Yeah, I would put it under there.
Yeah, I
I
think
would keep it under bus rides.
I think it's a
change
different
requests.
category.
Yeah, cause it's either emergency or then
Yeah.
you have like repeat.
I'm gonna come
or,
up with a
like,
title.
ongoing
I would
or-
do-
I'm thinking.
I would have it, I mean, it's typically for daycare reasoning. I think if parents are, you know, looking for it, I would use the word
I wouldn't use the word daycare, like, would it be,
after,
is
before
it
and after
only,
school care.
yeah, before and after school
Before and
care?
after
Maybe that's what it is, before and
Yeah,
after
cause I
school
got
care.
confused by even just the
Label
term
that way.
daycare, even though
Yeah.
we were talking about the same thing. So I
I
think
would
before
put
and
it
after
under
school, like before and after school.
Put it under.
Yeah, I think that's
before
fine. You don't
emergency.
even, I took away all the other words too. Like it used to say emergency accommodation, so I think that makes sense. Yeah, I would just put it right there. Do you want to type it, Kenny?
Sure.
Alright, awesome, thank you. Then that way it'll just be really clear.
What's the wording, Michelle? So I put families may request a change in their child's bus route or bus stop for before and after school care if the location of the provider is within the,
School,
School district, their child attends the school.
like school
District
bus,
boundaries.
school bus
School.
routes, like school bus
Well,
well,
routes?
not school district, cause they got, the school
Yeah,
district,
well,
I would
the
take that
school,
as
their
Kingstown,
home.
their home school boundaries.
Yep,
Yes.
yep, that's
Yes,
it.
there you go.
The other thing you may wanna include in there is, because it's gonna be a consistent change, right?
Mhm.
In other words, you don't want
Yeah,
someone
like
saying,
a
hey,
permanent
today,
change. So
I'd like
families
them
may
dropped off
request
at
a
Aaron's house
permanent-
tomorrow at
A
Rob's.
permanent change in
Right.
their child's
So
bus
I put
route.
on top, permanent before or after school care
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
changes.
yeah, because the other one is the emergency,
Right,
like that
yeah.
one-off,
Don't
Yeah.
really
get confused.
extra, yeah, like
What's-
you are
what
just
is
using for
the
funsies.
form, I'm gonna put in here.
Maybe ongoing
the-
instead of permanent, like,
I think we call it the daycare,
Like
like a
consistent.
daycare Google form is what we have it. Let me see what we actually.
So are we saying here that this would be a change that would be like for just for a longer period of time, or would be there like for,
This is
I guess,
this is for the consistent, where they're
Right.
going somewhere else, they're not going home.
so just hypothetically, let's say it's like 2 weeks, would that fall under this? Just, I'm trying
Yeah,
to.
no, it's a good
I
question.
know
You know.
that is a good question.
I think so, I mean, if it's gonna be for 2 weeks.
I mean,
don't think
that
we can take
technically
form so you have
falls-
it.
That technically falls under consistent. I think that's why it's a better word than permanent, because like that's a consistent thing, right? Like,
Extended
need-
maybe, or no? Okay.
I think it's covered under
Okay.
enough. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
It-
forever, but it's not a one-off.
Mm.
But it still has to be approved by Michelle. Like,
We've
it would
had
have to be.
parents that have had to
Yeah.
travel for, say, a funeral.
Yeah.
And like, and have been gone for like 10 days.
Yeah,
And then a
like-
neighbor, they would give us a note, we would assign them, we would tell
Yeah.
the driver, give a copy of the note.
Yeah.
And we would have the dates.
Yeah, so
That
that's,
would be-
that's, I think
Yeah.
that can fall under that.
We
Yep.
call it the transportation request, the daycare form,
Yep.
And it's on, I think it's even on our webpage. For
So-
parents.
Yeah, so we're just kind of leaving it somewhat open-ended to say, it could be like a segmented period of time, or it could be a little more open-ended.
Yeah. Families may request a change in their child's bus route or bus stops before and after school care if the location of the provider is within their home school boundaries. Parents and guardians are required to fill out the whatever form.
Transportation request hyphen daycare. We can change the name of it.
And then we'll just attach that form
Mhm.
to this policy.
Well, but if we attach the form to this policy, the form may change. I just wanna be careful, because then we gotta change the policy if the form changes.
Yep. What have we been doing?
Yeah, we've been saying which can be found on the NKSD
Yeah.
Okay, that's
website,
fine.
yeah.
Yep. At one point, were we putting forms on? I feel like yes.
I think there's one where we
Yeah,
attach the
yeah.
There
form.
is one that we did.
It's
It was
fine.
something
It's-
that
I
we
agree with
filled
you
out
though.
as a
Yep.
staff or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is good. We made progress there. Is that,
I keep going back to what Rob said, I don't love consistent, repeat, regular,
what if it just says before / after school care changes?
well, then I might look at that and think, oh, I need it today, right?
That's my only
Right.
concern,
Yeah,
is that
we
today
need- we
errands,
need a
tomorrow
word,
gens,
right.
you know,
Long term? Hold on, ChatGPT goes. Other words. Regular. Alright, consistency definitely.
I mean, I don't know if we wanna, I feel like we're sort of stuck in the middle between trying to, we don't wanna be too non-specific, but we also wanna be careful about being too specific, I think, but like, essentially what we're envisioning here is some length of time, right?
Yep.
We're looking at some length of time that is going to require a change.
That is more than a day
Yep.
and could be all school year.
So
Right.
we are talking about two different things also too, when you read it, so the consistent before after school care change, right? That is to change the child's bus route, bus stop, okay, for before and after school care, right? And it does talk specifically about before and after school care. Under emergency, it talks about riding a bus other than their designated route to disembark at a location other than their regular bus stop, right? So I think there is a difference there, right, in reading it. Like, the first one is about before, after school care, changing the bus route or bus stop. The other one is an emergency transfer for a student to ride a bus other than their designated route. I mean, they're two different.
I do
things.
think when I wrote that one though, I probably should have included, under the emergency one, get off at a different stop. Like, mom had to bring grandma to the hospital, like, I need my kid to get off at the bus stop with Bobby. You know, like, I think
You do have route or a bus
Yeah.
stop there, though.
oh, I thought it just said route, sorry. Yeah, in my head, like, there's the long-term one, right? Like, my kid's gonna get dropped off at Sunshine for the whole school year, like, I know that. And then there's what Michelle gave the example of somebody has to go to a funeral for 2 weeks, and we are filling out that form to do the process. In my head, the emergency one is like, that day it happens, and like, so you need to send an email to the school in writing to let them know, like, this is a one-time change.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't just be because, you know, Bobby wants to go hang out with James because they want to play Fortnite. You know, like, it has to be like for a legitimate reason, I think is what we're trying to convey.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
other words than consistent are extended, prolonged, sustained, permanent, continuous. Anyone like any of those?
Prolonged,
It's not a bad word.
no, I know, I'm saying that, I kinda like that one.
It's definitely not the consistent, because that, when I looked up synonyms for that, it gave me like the wrong list, so then I put in long-term and it gave me that list. So whatever it is, we should change it from consistent, cause that doesn't mean what we want it to mean, I don't think. I think
Right.
what we're trying to say is long-term.
And also, like, it, consistent to me, like,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
not the
have
right
to be
word.
Monday through Friday, it
No.
could be every Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah,
mean,
so I think
it
it's
could go
prolonged,
prolonged,
maybe.
yeah.
Good
Extended
enough?
is pretty good.
I'll change that, Ken. So is there any scenario that isn't covered by these two sentences, I guess is? Oh, I know what you're saying, this part in the yellow, is that what you're talking about, Ken? This part?
Right, that's what I was
So-
saying earlier, we have that
Yep.
under emergency, because that would be something where just it's one day.
Yeah,
right?
so
And that
sorry, if you see my note on the right there, the highlighted part, the transfers and whatever, I wrote this was lower in the document, seems repetitive, do we wanna delete it or combine it with that emergency one? Like, those are two separate statements right now in our
I think they should
policy.
be combined with the
Yeah, so I think we
emergency.
should,
Yep.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we're gonna take out the transfer language, right, and just put
Right,
it,
we wanna keep that there. Where else was it in
I cut and pasted it, it was way
the?
lower
Okay,
in the
you
policy,
removed it.
and I
Got it.
moved
Okay,
it
'cause I was
up.
looking to see where else, yeah, I would
Yeah, no,
definitely
like that actual,
keep
that,
that
those
there.
three sentences were like in a whole different section of the policy, and I was like, wait, I already read this, and then so I moved it up to where I thought it made sense, cause we already had that emergency language. So do you wanna just literally go like this?
That looks good.
Okay, so I'm gonna do that.
And writing could be email. I mean, a lot of times it is what we're getting emails.
Yeah, so that's why I put like, does written include email? So could we write like in an event of emergency,
For
A
a
written
student to
note or
ride a bus,
email.
I think we can just strike that whole written and go, in the event of an emergency, for a student to ride a bus, other blah, 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 cause the two sentences almost duplicate each other.
yeah, that's why I was saying, so do you wanna just keep the red?
Yeah, go in the
Yeah,
event
just
of
take that
emergency,
last.
Yeah.
and then strike the,
Get rid of this?
yep.
Okay. So, but to me, written, and I know this sounds stupid, is like a handwritten note. Like I was wondering if we wanted to say like a note or email.
For a student to ride the
Yeah, we'll just
bus.
put written,
Yeah.
written permission, written,
Doesn't sound right.
I don't know, like for some reason it was in my brain, I would think, oh, do I have to send a note or can I send an email? Cause some things I have to put a note in my kid's folder and
so
send
if
it
you're
in.
giving it to the driver, right, I mean, I think, you know, we send a note and give it to the driver, but then you might be emailing the school or the transportation office.
So,
And some parents do that.
Do a written note or,
let me just,
We have to reword this.
Yeah,
so along with approval from a school authorities, like you just said, hand it to the bus driver, right? So like if I'm handing the note to the bus driver,
we don't want that.
right, like, so.
I'm thinking like written approval or something to address where I think you're
Yeah.
going, which is, hey, I gave you a note,
Yeah. No,
Right.
I want the
Didn't
note
get
to
to
go
the
to
right
Michelle. I want Michelle to tell the bus driver.
Right,
but I
After she
think
approves
the
it.
school should notify the parent, that should be like the triggering thing, right? Because if I just send a note in and it doesn't get to the right place as a parent, I'm now but if I read this policy and it says, you have to get written approval, then you know that it's not official until you get something in writing from the school. I just think that
Yeah.
it helps us
Yes.
make sure it gets to the right spot. You know what I mean?
yep,
Yeah, but everybody's clear on where Tiny Human's going.
Exactly.
And parents will put it in the kids' folders, and then the teachers open it, and that's how that it goes down that chain, right? It lands into the office, and then the office sends it to us. 9 times out of 10, the parents will also call as a backup and say, I gave a note to my bus driver, my child's bus driver, and that's how it will start from there.
yeah, I mean, cause if we're saying that it requires approval from school authorities, but in reality, a note's just getting slid in, like, that's not really getting approved.
so they're gonna need confirmation back.
Mhm.
So if my son is only getting off at a different bus stop, right, that's really not necessarily needing approval, he's just gonna get off down the street instead of my house, cause he's gonna go to the neighbor. But if I'm saying he needs to take a different bus, he's gotta take bus 5 instead of 21, we would need some communication back that, yep, this is confirmed, your son's taking bus
Correct,
5 for the day.
correct.
Alright, so what do we need to change? In order for a student to ride a bus, other than their
Right.
other than
I think we,
Then
other than regular
designated?
bus, I think we should start off with
Mhm.
So are you
Parents-
saying, like,
parent
if they're getting off
or
at
guardian.
the same route but at a different house, you don't think confirmation needs to go back to the parent?
I think if it's just going at a different bus stop on the same route, I don't think we really need to, really just a note to the driver, so-and-so's, gonna get off down the street instead of at the house. Right, that's, sometimes parent might be there even telling the driver. May or may
Play-
Okay,
not.
let's play worst case
No.
scenario.
I was gonna say, play this out with me.
So my
Uh,
kid who has
hand-
nice handwriting
hands
writes a
the
note
note.
saying it's totally cool. I'm not joking.
Nope, they,
Like,
No,
it-
Erin and I
they,
are
they
in the
won't do
same
it in my
place,
hometown.
yeah.
I don't think I would do.
They
I don't think we should do it
refuse to
either.
And it's actually, it's borderline annoying, but they like,
Yeah.
if my son, when he was little, wanted to play at a friend's house who was one stop before ours, they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely would not do
Yeah.
it. They have to drop him off at our stop, and then we would have to
But this
physically bring
isn't
him
for
back to the
playing,
house.
this is for daycare reasons.
Well, for, in your mind, it's daycare reasons, but what if my
That's what-
kid decides he wants to go play with the kid down the street and you told me no, and I'm
So
like,
then
you know what, Dad, I'm
Let's
gonna write a note.
specify this, so then we do need to make sure that we,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I actually, and I don't know if we.
so I need to
The
communicate
thing
back.
is the drivers are out, they do have a very good rapport with the parents, so and then they always give us the message. So, Johnny Smith, he's going, not being dropped off at his bus stop today, he's gonna get 2 houses down or 2 stops down. They always relay the messages to us, but in the event that they don't,
But like, is the relay the message, like, the person when they were dropping them off in the morning just literally says to the bus driver, hey, like, this afternoon, like, Sarah's getting off at so-and-so stop, like, is that what happens? Is it just verbal?
no, usually they put something in writing to
Okay.
us or to let us know.
That's good, that makes me
Yeah.
feel less horrified.
They might say something verbal like, Mr. So-and-so will be taking
Yeah,
Susie
yeah.
off the bus today.
Yeah, so I think for the policy's sake, we just wanna write, kind of like, we wanna be really transparent about like what our policy is, and then like procedurally, like Michelle and the bus drivers and you all can figure it out, but I do think, like, having something in writing really helps, because then it's not putting our employees in a situation where it's like they said versus they said. Like, I'm trying to protect the employees in this, because like, if my kid get off at a different bus stop and I didn't really know that that was happening, like, I'm gonna be blaming the employee, and I don't wanna put them in a tricky situation if they think they're doing what's right, but it's not. So, Ken's wordsmithing.
So, when we say in order for a student to ride a bus other than their designated route, are we saying like like it just doesn't line up there?
Yeah, the sentence is still wrong, like grammatically. I think what it's trying to say is, you usually ride bus 22, now you're gonna ride bus 14.
Right, so maybe we wanna say something, if, in order for a student to ride a bus other than their their assigned
Yeah.
bus?
Mhm, yep.
Right, I'll get it. Or to disembark at a location other than their regular
Yep.
stop, yeah.
Comma, or I think,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, comma.
No, it's okay, I didn't write this sentence originally and do not care now.
Or to disembark at a location other than the regular bus stop, the parent or guard, a parent/guardian must provide written permission to. Okay.
Must provide
And
written, it's not permission, yeah, permission.
Written request.
Must make a written request,
But, yeah,
must provide a written request.
But do we want it to the transportation supervisor or to the building secretary? And then our building secretaries know what the
Procedure is.
expectations are, because that means now we're waiting on you. You may not get to your email or get to see it, where building clerk will. And that way, they're then getting into, okay, and at that, and also the school is the one that's making the changes of where that child, what bus that child's going on with their dismissal.
Correct.
That's fine, change it.
Honestly, in the perfect world, if it went to both offices. Just because there have been times that if the clerk's not there away from the desk, or they don't see it in a timely fashion, then that child, we've had it where kids have gotten on another bus, and then they have to get brought back to the school, and then it
Cool,
becomes,
fun.
One other thing here is, it's titled as emergency changes, but we're kind of, like, we gave examples of non-emergencies, like so-and-so going to so-and-so's
Yeah.
house or something like that, and there's no, the language in here doesn't really
Somewhere we can say
reference
this is not for
emergencies.
play dates.
Correct.
This is only
Yeah.
for
We might wanna,
after school care.
say, it- not say it like that, but like, say it like,
So maybe emergency change for after
So
school
they call
care.
them safe
Right to the
ladies.
chase.
but say something
It could
just
be the morning
reference.
too, though. I have to, no, this is about getting,
Like, if it's an emergency,
it
If
could be
it's-
morning. Like if something happened at night and I
Yeah,
needed
yeah,
to
yeah.
drop my kids
Yep.
somewhere.
right,
Yeah,
I'm just saying the word emergency makes it sound like it's
Yep.
gonna be
I think-
a pretty exceptional
I think-
situation.
I think that's what we're trying to get at because the other one is the prolonged.
Okay,
Like, and so we can change it from emergency, but I think the original intent of this section, and we may have gotten away from that, was the one-offs. Like,
that's what I thought it was,
it's
Yeah.
to be honest with
noon,
you.
and
Yeah.
oh my gosh,
Mhm.
something
Mhm.
happened. I gotta email the school. So now, reading this policy, I know I need to email Michelle and our school clerk. Hey, like
Mhm.
so and so needs to take bus 14 today instead of bus 22. Like that sort of energy. So I don't know. Like I think what we're trying to say is like for a real reason, not just for funsies.
Yeah, for fun.
Right.
But I don't know what the right word is for that.
But
I think I took that.
emergency. I think emergency at least gives you some
Right.
ability to say on our end, no, it's not an emergency that your kids have a play date today.
right,
It's not
Right.
an emergency that, you know what I mean, the emergency is
or it could,
someone gets hospitalized, yeah, I have to go see a family
Well, maybe
member, I'm
it's
gonna
with
drop them
reason
off in the
for
morning
request.
at
Mhm.
Kenny's house and they'll pick them up there or something.
yeah, or it could, and again, I don't wanna overthink this, but like, it could be a non-emergency, but it just could be a circumstance where there is
An
no other
unexpected
option.
circumstance.
Unexpected, right, where it's like, there's just no other option I have, and I need
Yeah,
an
like
alternative.
I got stuck in crazy traffic.
Yeah,
That's not
exactly,
an emergency, but I'm
right.
not going to be at my bus to get my kindergartner.
Right,
Well, but
And I would argue that is an
I guess
emergency.
it is
Yeah,
an
Yeah,
emergency.
because I'm
Maybe
not,
I
because
don't know.
I'm having one to get my kindergartner.
I think emergency, I think hospital, or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, that's,
Well, let's
But
see
we get
if,
those phone calls a lot as well. And the parents, we do ask them, we said we'll do it verbally, who's gonna be there, make sure that they have like an ID present, but they always email us afterwards, so we have a copy of that. And we keep a copy of all the letters we receive from parents.
That's kind of like, so this policy is predicated on receiving approval for the request prior to the thing happening. But what I'm hearing in practice is that the thing is happening and we are providing approval after the fact, if at all, right? And so I'm not advocating for one versus the other, but if our
we wanna
policy
make
is
it accurate.
saying that you're gonna get approval for your request, that's not submitting the note the same day and saying.
well,
Jenny's-
no, but what I just heard Michelle say is parent calls. The writing part is coming in late.
Yeah.
So parent calls and says, oh my gosh, like Bobby needs to get on bus 14 today, starts
I'm more
22.
talking-
Michelle approved it.
I'm more talking about the note that comes in the folder.
Oh, okay. Can you explain where then I
Like,
misunderstood?
the policy says you must submit in writing to receive approval for the request, right? So I send Johnny off for the day, I put the note in his folder, as far as I'm concerned, Johnny's going home with Jim. And I haven't gotten approval for that. So when does that approval come? How do I know that approval has been given? What happens if the approval
Yeah.
isn't been given? Like,
That's why I'm team, when possible, email, because then it gives you the mechanism to write back. And the clerks are so good about it, and Michelle's so good about it, that you get an email back saying, this is received, you're good. Whereas the note in the folder is sometimes an abyss, right?
so do
like,
we wanna mandate that it has to be?
Well, then I was
But then what
thinking-
happens
but
with
then I was
people who don't
thinking-
have
yeah, there
access
we
to
go.
email, right, so.
Right.
what's your preference, Michelle, from a procedural
I
standpoint?
do know when,
There's also-
students bring notes to school, that a lot of times if it's not granted, even at school level, before it gets to myself, because if it's just for a play date, the principals will write then call, or the clerks will, and say, you know, unfortunately, Johnny can't go home with Danny today for a play date. And then it ends there, it doesn't even reach us a lot of the times at that point. They'll just get a decline from the school.
Okay, we gotta move on. So we gotta just like. It also, a different word for emergency that might make Rob urgent is a
Mm.
different word,
Yeah.
like ChatGPT.
yeah, maybe, yeah.
Um,
Urgent / emergency, you know, we get to do something with, I mean,
Yeah.
if we wanted to cover our bases.
so we can do that, I don't care. So, do we wanna make a note of like these one-off requests, like, may be denied if they're not safety or care related, you know what I mean? Like, cause I'm hearing that principals are denying stuff, but like on what basis of what policy? So if a parent was then mad and they appealed to Ken, like, hey, I can't believe so-and-so principal didn't let my kid go home with so-and-so, like, I wanna make sure that our policy language is really
Yeah,
clear.
cause it doesn't say
So
in
we may
here
wanna-
anything about that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was thinking if we wanted to like, just add a sentence, something to the effect of like, in the event of an unforeseen or urgent
Yeah.
or urgent/emergency scenario or something like that, if we wanna just preface it by saying, in the event of something like that, where it conveys that it's like, this is kind of an exceptional situation that is a must versus a want to have, yeah.
Yeah,
How about that?
yeah,
That's pretty
that's
good.
good.
Mhm.
Alright, so we can always come back to this, we're not finishing this policy today, so I just wanna get you to the bottom, so I kind of explain what I can do, and then Jen, my recommendation is next steps is Ken, Michelle, and then if she wants to show it to other staff, even the bus drivers at this point, like, I feel like it's far enough that we can get some eyes on it, cause I wanna make sure that what we're writing makes sense to folks. So do you mind if I push us forward and then we could always circle back to that?
No, please, cause I'd like to.
Yeah, we wanna get to
yeah.
Lydia's, yeah.
Mhm.
So for maintenance, if you go on to page 6, there was something that referenced like under the federal motor carrier, like see where it says like school bus drivers are required under the federal motor carrier thing.
Mhm.
So I didn't know like,
So I'm trying to pull it up right now.
yeah, like is that a law? Is it a thing? Like I know what it is and I know what we're saying, but like I wanted to reference, like it's not
Did you
ours.
Put that in, or is that something you got?
I don't
from
flipping
somewhere
know.
else?
We were cutting and pasting from other policies and stuff, so we might have put that in. It makes sense, like they are required under the federal motor carrier to perform a daily vehicle inspection report. That's normal. I just wanted to make sure we were like citing who
Citing what
wrote
was,
that,
right.
like, you know what I
It just-
mean?
So
So
there's
it
the
looks like,
Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
So federal
Safety
motor
of
carrier
commercial
safety
motor
regulations, I
vehicles.
think is what you're
Yes.
gonna find,
Yeah.
yep.
That's where you're gonna find it.
yep, so required under the what?
Federal motor carrier safety regulations.
And there's no like,
I can give you, I'm fine, I get that right, yeah, you want that?
yeah,
It's 49.
Yep.
Space, capital C, capital F, capital R,
sorry, CFR?
space 390.
That's what I wanted, thank you.
Yep.
Just cause like, I know from when we go back and try to find stuff, we're like, wait, what is this? Alright, so that's taken care of. Going down a little bit farther, it says on page 6, it had noted, that required safety drills for drivers and monitors and students, to practice bus evacuations twice a year. I was curious if that was calendar year or school year.
School year.
Alright.
Once in the spring and once in the fall and once in the spring.
It doesn't have to be that though, does it? Okay, is that from whom?
It's actually in,
Like that's not us, right? Somebody else wants us to do
Yeah,
that?
it's not us,
Yeah,
yeah.
so we should just find the source for that? Cause if they're dictating spring and fall, we'll note that, and then we'll note what governing agency is requiring that. So we can work on that later. And then at the bottom, this is the part where it's all new, so we need, like, Ken and Michelle, for you and other folks to take a look at it. So we had indicated that we wanted to add some language about transportation availability beyond the school day, and so on page 8, you'll see that I wrote in some language for after-school activities, late bus, and summer programs, but this is completely made up sentences, so if you all wanna just look at it, change it to make it right for our district, like that would be great. And then for the summer programs, I had put a note about adding language about IEPs, because I know for summer program transportation, like, there's certain students that will get transportation because we're trying to transport all students, but then by accommodations in their IEP, some students get transportation, so I feel like we should differentiate between those two. And then under student transportation, we had talked about student operated transportation to school, so for high school students who were driving themselves, so I took a stab at that language for y'all. And then I put a note about like what is our current procedure for this, so maybe checking in with Shavali or Eric or whoever at that building has the lovely joy of dealing with that
Yeah,
situation.
there's a form that goes out, it's
Yeah.
written, it's a form, it's a Google form that
Yeah.
goes out for the request.
But just the whole thing in
That's what
general,
we're
like I just wrote it generically, and so if they would want different things in
We
there.
have a
I don't
policy.
think this transporting other students thing is reasonable.
No, it's completely imaginary,
Okay.
but it's what I wrote, or it's what I saw in a different policy, so I
Okay.
wrote it. I think that's why I put what is our current policy on this.
It's not.
We have nothing. Anyone can
We
drive
have-
anyone.
What, you mean about the student operated transportation?
Yeah, so Jen was faster than us. She's on transporting other students.
Oh, transporting other,
Yep. So all we had written on this page when we left our last meeting was the 3 headers. So I just wrote, like I looked at a couple of things and wrote whatever.
I don't think we should even have that in there.
We don't care at all.
I don't know how you can legislate it.
That's, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
that's up to,
it's.
that's not our duty
yeah,
if,
no.
like, if,
I mean,
I mean,
I know in
I'll
like
be honest, my
Massachusetts, it's
daughter
required,
drives
you
her friend
can't
all the
have
time.
another kid in your car for like the first 6 months or
as
Yeah.
long,
something,
they
and
have
if
to,
the
as
police
long
gets
as
you,
they're,
then you.
yeah, I mean, as long
Oh,
as
we
they're
don't care.
driving
License
under the
Deleted.
state regulations of DMV and their license,
Yeah,
we can't
we
control
can't, yeah.
who or what they do.
Apparently some districts do, but we don't care, so we just deleted it.
Well, it's
Okay.
not that we don't
Yeah.
care.
No, I
It
just-
shouldn't
No,
be
but
our
I think
responsibility.
Yeah.
adhere to all
That's up to
local
the
traffic
parents
laws
and
when driving to
guardians.
school covers
Yeah, that's
that,
not-
like, because
Yeah.
we have the 2-kid rule in Rhode Island, like a sibling and one other, so.
Okay, so that's all set. I deleted that. So it's just those other 2, the student operated transportation to school and the parking on school grounds, which I do think. What is it being weird?
It's my mouse pad, my mouse is like moving on its own. in different
Okay,
directions.
so if you have any edits to that, that's great. And then the last thing that I took a stab at was personal items, decorations and equipment on school buses. That was another note that we just had randomly at the bottom. This language is, I don't even know if I like it, but I just wanted to give you something to edit. Like I was just trying to push you forward. So,
I can't scroll through right now, so I'm just listening.
yeah, no, and so I don't expect, but if you all can look at it and think, does this make sense for lights and decorations? Do we even want to address this? Do we like what's written about musical instruments and large items? Is what we say is prohibited actually what's prohibited? And then is there approval process for special items? So, like, for example, like the sports team won something like state finals and they want to put a sign up on one of the windows or something. I don't know, whatever it is. Like, how do they get permission to do that? And then the very, very last piece is the video surveillance piece. We had a note about that. Again, I have no idea what our intent was, but this is one that I pulled from somewhere else about like purpose and use of video surveillance on the buses, privacy considerations, etc.
I feel like we have a policy on that, but for whatever reason, because my clock thinks it's December 13th, I can't access the
What is
website.
wrong with all of
I
your
don't know,
computers
but my
today?
computer, it's literally, it's like,
Right.
it's scrolling by itself.
So anyways, like I said, we're not,
Has a mind of its own.
Yep.
I'm leaving it.
so, I think this part could be shortened, like a lot shorter, or if there's already another policy that talks about it, like we should just reference it, but
Which one is that?
the video surveillance on school buses part, we had made a note, like, I just took whatever we had at the bottom
We
and
should look at
tried to.
whatever, if, I think we do have somewhere in
We
a policy
do.
about.
We definitely have
like,
something about that,
surveillance
and so
just
making
report
sure,
back
if
to
it
that.
said, if it already talks about buses, great,
If not,
and then
we
we'll
have
just
to.
reference that, but we had put a note, so I just
Mhm.
grabbed something from a different policy and threw it in there for us to have something to work on. And I think that is pretty much everything that we were looking at putting in or adding. There's some stuff in the bottom at yellow, but I don't know why, it looks like it's up at the top, but I was too scared to delete it, so just take a look at it before our next meeting, and then we can hopefully get something sent up, Jen.
Okay, so we're not gonna move this forward to the school committee, it's still gonna be reviewed,
My personal preference is that the administration reviews all that new stuff. There's too much new
Yeah,
stuff,
I agree.
like, cause I wanna make sure, like, it's right, but I do feel confident that at our next meeting, we can move it up to the school committee. I'm optimistic,
I agree.
like we're closer.
Are you gonna share this with like the building administrators also?
Mhm.
Okay. Just cause they see it from that side.
Yep. again though, that video surveillance part, that very last part is definitely too long. So just edit it as you see fit, like, I don't even think you need to redline it, like, just delete anything that's in red. If you wanna change it, just delete it, cause it was just from a different policy, or I wrote it, like, based on what I thought was right.
When I can find that policy, I will send that to you so that you can look at it. I know we have
I'm looking
that.
for it right now, is it, what, do we know what that's titled?
The
now?
video policy?
I think it's within another if I
I may
thought I
have,
read it somewhere within something else.
I think I might actually
The
have it in
surveillance
the
policy?
Google
Oh,
Drive
I've
for
got it.
this.
Hold on.
Video and
Yeah, video
Recording
and
surveillance
audio
cameras, yeah.
recording surveillance
Yeah.
cameras, IJNDB.1, maybe?
that's what I got.
Anything
I'll
about
link it in.
transportation? That way we can just refer, or we can just update
The
that
surveillance
when it comes.
policy one, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there is nothing about transportation, but it might, if when we
Is there
read
anything
it
about
through,
School grounds or school
yeah.
operated vehicles.
I know it says on transportation,
Yeah, it
yeah.
does say.
Appropriate
Okay.
signage will be posted on school
Yeah.
buses,
Yep.
blah, blah, blah. So
Mhm.
it definitely does cover it to a certain
So
extent.
we should just say something and they refer to.
Yeah, we'll reference that.
Yep.
Just one sentence.
But I'll leave the language there for now, so that if there is something else additional that you were like, oh, this isn't in that policy, but we should have it noted, we can keep it.
Yeah, it's charging. It's yours now?
But I'll link this in, so you have it. Alright, so Michelle, just take a look at that, and then, like I said, whatever you all think is right, and then we'll see it at the next policy meeting. Jen, anything else you want on that one?
Nope, thank you.
You are released.
Thanks,
Okay,
Michelle.
Lydia, you're up. So we had talked about this policy at the last meeting, and we're going to edit it, combine it, make some changes. I did that, I sent it to you and Rob to look at, so I will turn it over to you and Rob.
Did you wanna, I think you did exactly what was, you set out to do, which was to grab bits and pieces from the sample. I'm not crazy about ride sample, so there's certain aspects to it that I don't prefer, but they are the ride's, suggestion, so, and part of the reason, there's a couple of things that I can just go through.
Please,
Is that
yep.
okay?
And feel free to say what you don't like about
Yeah,
the
no,
ride.
so
Yeah.
like one of the overall things that I'm not crazy about is their use of students in transition. I think that's very open-ended, and I personally, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but like, I think having a policy that is defining benefits to a population that's larger than intended. In other words, there are lots of students in dealing with traumatic transitions that fall outside of what's protected under McKinney-Vento. So, that's just a personal, question, or I don't object to it. That is what the language that they put in some of the sample policy. But I just thought to myself, this isn't all students in
What?
transition. This is
That's
a specific subset of that.
It's,
We don't define that in this
I
policy
restart my
though, correct, do we?
The one that you merged, so the aspects that came from the sample.
Yep.
So if you look on page, my page is on numbered, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, under comparable
Okay,
services,
children and youth in
youth in
transition.
transition. And so, and it repeats itself in several places starting at that point, mostly in that section. And then again, on the second to last paragraph. It's not necessarily a problem, I just think it's a little vague language for a policy.
I was just gonna say, we don't provide a definition for it, so is there like a,
What are
I
we
mean,
trying
if
to,
you
what are we trying to
if you
define?
look up what does it mean, a student in transition, it has to do with students, it's not a homeless thing or McKinney.
Okay,
but it-
sorry,
but it-
point of
But
clarification.
it, I think it
You've lost
applies.
Yeah, it does.
It
Where are
does
we?
apply.
I think the act itself might even define in transition, I'm gonna double
Where
check.
are we
Oh, yeah.
on the doc? Sorry, I just wanna-
Of the, I don't, does everybody have the one that you?
Yeah.
They should,
Okay.
yep,
Is it
Page
1128, that one?
Yes.
Is that, that's
Yep.
what's in the title?
yep.
Yeah.
On page 5, so that's one
Okay.
thing that I paused that because it's not, it is used, and then I looked at their sample, I was like, oh, that's where she got it from. It's not a term that I see a lot. If I look up students in transition as a terminology, what came up wasn't homeless students, so but I don't object to it, I just was sharing,
Sorry, can someone tell me where on page 5 it is?
Under comparable services.
Okay, so comparable services, children, because I just wanna make sure that I understand what you're saying, so that I
I
can.
mean, and again, like I said, it was,
Children and youth.
it's a choice that's in the sample that it's not that I object to it, I know I'm repeating myself, I don't object to it, I just
The verbiage, the language.
I just was surprised that they used that language as a defining, because it's
So is
not
this,
one that I've seen before in the context of McKinney-Vento, although it applies, for
So-
sure.
are they trying to say, so under comparable, so they're saying comparable services, so that, and then it says children and youth in transition shall be provided services comparable to services offered to other students in the selected school, including, so this is referencing what's above it, I'm assuming?
The comparable services are like transportation, and other types of programs, like if you're a student who's displaced and would otherwise have gotten, transportation or after-school programming or
Yeah.
gifted or talented,
Yeah, you still get
you
those
still
things.
get those things.
So basically, it's any child covered by this policy, correct?
Correct.
So do we
Just write
have
it
to
like that.
use that phrase? Yeah, can we just say
I
any
just
child?
don't, it was a question I had for the kind of,
Yeah.
the policy language, only because I could,
Reduce
if
it.
I was a,
I'm trying to
Oh,
find,
if
I've
I
heard
was-
it used
Yeah.
consistently, and I know that it's like it's a very, it would help if it was defined, what they mean by in transition is
Right.
in between homes,
Right,
you know,
right,
maybe your house is
exactly.
for
But
maybe
there's
it's
like-
not
there's-
doing, but
but
you're
there
in
are
transition,
other-
but the transition is related to your home situation,
right,
or
and
your
I just
housing
think,
situation, I should say.
I think it, to me, I could see somebody being like, well, I might not be the other things, but this is just saying students in transition. I mean, I don't know if anybody's gonna look at that, but, so that was my, then I only had a couple of other things. Should I go ahead?
Please, yep.
So if we look on page 4, the right above school enrollment and stability, the data paragraph, I would personally prefer it reads data will be monitored as opposed to collected, because collected reads that it's kept in a particular fashion or place. It's something that we monitor, but I don't know that collected is necessary or reflective of keeping of a print kind of record. We monitor, or I monitor, these various factors to make sure that the supports are getting to the students when they need it, but I don't collect that data in terms of a print record.
Is there a reason why you don't?
I don't have a good mechanism to do so in a way that is, that I've been instructed to do. Does that make sense? I mean, I do track it and I can check it, but I just don't, the
Where did
way
that-
it is, when I read data is collected, I said, well, what does that mean? And for me, the data is more for action as opposed to keeping a record. It's less of a record and more of a data point to deliver services and identify need. So we could say data will be I mean, we could keep collected, but that was a pause point for me, so that's why I brought it up.
I'm just looking at the,
So I guess, like, my concern is it, like, monitoring, like, how do we know?
Because monitor probably also has because of how, like, like that word is used in it.
But we
as a
keep
meaning.
track in Aspen.
We
right?
keep-
We
we-
keep track, I mean, Joanne has to keep track of children that are considered homeless.
Absolutely, where they're all coded in Aspen as well as their attendance,
I
and
think
that's
this
what.
is
that's
just,
what that is.
that's all
That's
this
it.
is,
I-
so it's
okay,
done, yeah,
okay,
we don't,
okay, that's fine.
we're all set.
Okay,
I hear what you're
They're
saying,
using the
but
word, yeah, they're using the word,
yeah,
I believe, my understanding, transition, right?
yeah,
As students are transitioning, in the unfortunate event where they don't have a home anymore, and they're being identified as homeless, or maybe they're living in with someone else, or wherever that may be, once we know that we collect, we have to,
right, we do,
right? That's something
okay.
we have to
Mm.
have,
Okay.
so.
I was reading it as collecting, in a matching, so in other words, in my files for each family, that I would have, like a digital file that I can pull all that information. So I guess I hear what you're saying, and that's a good point.
so it
we
says
can-
data will be collected
can-
on the number of children and youth in transition, which we already know, we don't love that word, but we know what they
Yeah,
mean.
yeah,
What
yeah,
their,
yeah.
what their
Yeah.
meaning is that they're transitioning between
Yeah.
different housing situations
Mhm.
in the district where, so we should be, we did not write this comes from the higher document. So it's, what it's saying is that our district should be keeping track of the number of children that fall into that category, where they are living, their academic achievement, including state and local
Which
assessments.
we would have that if we're.
And
Right, we have all,
reasons
right,
for
we have
any
all that information.
Enrollment delays.
In separate places, I just don't have it all in a single, but I hear what you're saying, and that's fine.
But if you're coding them in Aspen, you would be able to pull
Yeah,
it.
We
Yeah.
can pull
Yeah.
it, which is what you're saying,
Yeah.
and,
So
okay,
no.
that makes sense.
I would say that we,
No, that's, yeah, I
we can
know,
look at it tomorrow,
No,
but we
yeah,
should
yeah.
be all set.
yeah, okay, that's fine.
But as long as you're coding them, because you would be able to pull,
Oh,
like if
they're
we
all
said, hey,
coded.
run a query of all students
Yeah,
coded
yeah.
like this, because we wanna know what their
And
academic
we-
achievement
and
is, you would
we-
be able to do that.
Yeah, we report or I shouldn't say, Joanne reports and I cross-reference the students who are coded, monthly to rise.
Yeah, you're doing that. One question though, logistically about that one, Jen, so there's bullets, so it starts with like a bullet 2 for McKinney-Vento liaison duties, right? And then we have like an A, and then like,
The formatting needs to be.
you'll fix it?
Yeah, it was
Okay,
all just.
cause they just, that last
Yep.
part that we're talking about right now is like in La La Land,
Yep.
so you'll fix that, we don't need to worry about that, okay.
The only other thing that I wanted to point out was I would like, if it's possible, on page 5, on the last paragraph above the comparable services, when applying any district policy regarding tardiness or absence, that sentence, I think it would be appropriate to amend that to say any tardiness or absence related to transportation for a McKinney-Vento student will be excused. In other words, so if the student is late because the statewide bus was late, then they're not, obviously, that's an excused tardy, or the bus didn't come, or we weren't able to arrange transportation and there's a delay, but.
So what in your head wouldn't count for an excused tardy?
The child and parent are on, are on vacation, and so that's, they miss school, or.
It specifically says though, youth living situation. So it says,
One could unless we want to excuse it, one could argue that, like, the kid didn't want to get out of bed this morning because they're not in a good mood, and so they so they didn't come to school. If we want to say that if your kid doesn't want to come to school, or,
sorry, I just
if
hear
we
people
want to make that all an excuse, I just thought that usually, I always talk to the schools and I say, if they're late because of statewide, because of a transportation related thing, it should be excused. Or if the bus didn't show, they're absent, it should be excused. But do we want to excuse any tardies or absences for displaced students? I didn't think that was the intention, that's why I was seeking that clarification, but if that's the intention.
Well, I think that, Aaron, if I'm correct, what I see you getting at here is that, like, there's gonna be circumstances that may not be transportation related, but are definitely valid circumstances for a student in transition to not be able to be on time or attend on a specific day or days.
Yeah, so this to me meant, and I could be misinterpreting it, but like you were saying at your cousin's house, whatever, and then like you got told really quickly you had to leave there for some reason, and so like you were helping your family pack up stuff and then you were late to school, right? Like that is specifically connected to the youth living situation, and so that tardy would be excused versus unexcused. Like I think
So
that
like,
that's the
like,
intent.
like logistics, as
Yeah.
opposed to like, cause there are a lot of emotional
Yep.
impacts to the trauma of being
Which I think is okay
displaced,
too. I think I would defer to the
So-
administration, but I think it gives the administration the autonomy
to make
to
it
mark
out.
it excused if it's a legitimate thing connected to the
Okay.
youth's living situation. Does that make sense? Like,
It does, yeah.
I think that's.
like I think there are some times where they're just being teenagers, and that
Right.
should still be
Right.
unexcused.
Right.
But I
Right.
think this is giving that autonomy of like an exception to our tardy and unexcused
and
policy
it allows that
to make these
determination
students
to
not be
made
penalized
by-
for that.
by this, whoever's having
Yeah.
that conversation with the family
Yeah.
at that moment.
Mhm.
So my question on that one is if we leave this, just making sure, like this one has to then be connected to that other one.
To the, attendance
Attendance
policy.
policy.
Yeah, cause it doesn't have anything,
Yep.
it doesn't say anything about that in there.
Yep.
We can change it, like I'm not advocating for it one way or the other, but like the
Right.
way I'm interpreting it, it makes sense to me, like.
Well, we do have
they
language
come
in the
in-
attendance policy that does give administration some open-ended
Yeah.
leeway in terms of
Yeah.
interpreting excuses versus
Yeah.
unexcused.
But I also think like this, sometimes like things from the state and things are trying to educate districts on things, and I think what they're basically saying is like there are circumstances where students that have been unhoused like are going to be tardy, and that we
Yep.
can mark those as excused because that is
Yeah.
an excused reason.
yep.
Like I see what they're
Yep.
saying there.
Yep. And I would expect that, building administration
Can handle
would
that.
understand that and would apply discretion.
I would imagine
I
that
mean,
they're
a lot of
possibly
times we
do.
find out about displaced students because of attendance issues
Mhm.
related to.
That makes sense, yep, when you're talking through it.
Yeah.
So to circle back to the phrase in transition, do we want to define it for our purposes? Do we want to change it? What do we wanna do with that phrase?
So I looked it up in the in the McKinney-Vento stuff, and they use it in a different way that
Just
I
a
thought.
shelter.
They
They use it as a transitional shelter.
Yeah, I thought that
I've been,
word,
that's what I've been doing the
made more
last 15
sense.
minutes. But I do think though, it's more than just in a transitional shelter. I think the term, and I think we could define it, or even if we just say transitioning with respect to
Housing.
your
residential
that student's
transition.
housing, individual housing situation, something like that, because I think if you look at the overall definition, it does talk about transition. You know, I'm on my friend's couch this week.
Mhm.
Next week, maybe I'm at a temporary
holiday inn.
shelter.
Yeah.
You're transitioning in between
Yeah.
stable
Yeah, could-
housing and none, so
Yeah.
Right, couldn't it
And
apply?
I think it totally works.
Yeah.
It,
Yep.
it just, I don't know if it only works.
I can't find a
yeah.
definition. I have gone to different policies. I'm in the federal statutes. No one
Right.
has defined it.
So do
They'll
we
use
just
it, but no one defines
change
it.
it to children covered under this policy and remove that phrase?
I think I would leave the transition, if anything, I would just define the term transitional. And again, even if it's sort of I don't wanna say a cop-out definition, but this, this definition applies to students who are transitioning in between housing for purposes of McKinney-Vento.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Say that one more time.
Transitioning,
You got it on tape, don't
transition
worry.
Oh,
has
that's
to do
right,
with
Yeah,
okay.
I think
students
that-
transitioning between housing.
Yeah, as it
And
applies to
that-
As it applies to
I think that
McKinney-Vento,
makes, I
yep.
think that makes a lot of sense, and it just kind of tightens that language a little bit.
I'm amazed that no one,
So ChatGPT says, the concept of transition speaks to the shifts in an individual's living situation, often characterized by instability, but also encompassing the potential for change, recovery, and reintegration into stable housing and community life. It's not the worst.
I'm just surprised no one else is, no
I
one.
like, ours was a little
Yeah, it's-
All over the
concise.
place.
yeah. Okay, so we'll work through that. That's good. That's helpful feedback.
The policy itself is McKinney-Vento homeless assistance.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I
should
mean, that would
be
be the
a
fallback argument.
It's
It's
implied,
obviously within the
It's
context
implied,
of this
right.
policy.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I saw a few typos, but that I think will happen
Yeah,
and
well, I'll
clean
clean
up.
those
Those
up,
were
yeah.
the only things, I mean, I think it really encompasses what the law, the McKinney-Vento
Mhm.
requires that we do, and that we do as a district.
Jen, I did notice a couple times it just says parents So,
Okay, I'll fix that too.
thank you.
Okay, so if everybody's okay, I will make a motion to move this forward to the school committee with the changes that we discussed here.
I'll second.
Okay.
And we have a letter number ready to go tomorrow.
Yeah, she was telling me, so,
Okay.
yep.
We will go through stuff.
Yeah, I told her that I would let her know if any policies came out of this, so I will add this. All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Lydia.
Lydia.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the work that you do. We appreciate it.
Mhm.
Okay, so I cannot access anything. The date for our next meeting.
You said that was February, you sent it earlier
It's
today.
a mystery.
I saw something.
It's
It was-
the
No, I
mystery.
have it, hold on. You said, in my 90 things I got from you today, which was helpful.
You know, I realized why I didn't do it.
February 3rd.
I didn't put it in because I wasn't sure if I was gonna be on the
Yeah.
committee, that's why I
Yeah.
didn't do
Yeah.
it.
February.
So February.
Well, so I knew we had it today because I knew we booked a meeting after, but then it wasn't on my calendar, so then I double booked a phone call, and then I yelled at Jen because I didn't have a calendar. So it's February 3rd.
Which was fair, okay.
February 3rd, yep.
So, I would really like to get to the attendance boundaries and assignment of student to schools, because there is part in there that covers redistricting, and I don't want the redistricting committee to get too far along without the school committee giving them some type of direction on process. So if we can make that a priority for the next,
Where are we with that one, Jen?
I
Is
have
it-
the drafts, I just need
Do we need admin
administration
feedback?
feedback.
Yeah, so what's in there, just cause we are actively working. on
So
it.
if you go into the drafts, you will see what is laid out. It's pretty much what we're doing already, but I just would like to get that officially approved.
Is the attendance boundaries you said?
Yeah, there's two policies. One is the assignment of students to schools, like in general, and then the other is like a redistricting
Yep.
policy.
So is this the one that's 1028?
I think so. Let me see.
So there's the folder of attendance boundaries. It looks like the most up-to-date one was the 10/28 one, to
Yep.
Rob's point. And then the other one is assignments, you said?
Yeah, so it is.
Ken, you want me to bing you on them just so they're
I
in your
have it.
inbox?
I have, thank you.
Yeah, I think they're both under attendance boundaries. One is the, assignment of students to schools, and then the attendance boundaries redistricting, that's the one that covers, kind of the scope of the, redistricting policy.
So that'd be
So
the
this
one-
is an existing policy that, I don't see red lines on it though.
You
It
have
says
stuff
red line.
highlighted. You have stuff highlighted for
There's
some
stuff
of them.
highlighted,
Yeah.
but not a lot has changed, right? You just made some notes.
You know why, I took the existing policies and put it in like a clean draft, so
Got it.
it's like a new kind of combined policy.
Understood, yeah, that makes sense.
And I think the
So is it-
highlights are the things that I had questions on.
So are there two, so did you combine this policy with something else, or?
No.
No, so
Because
there's
it says
attendance
GCA and
boundaries.
GCAC at the top.
Yes, I did.
So the administration only needs to look at that one document?
Well, really, they need to look at both, but the one that covers the,
Where's the other one, Jen, is what I'm,
Yeah,
I
is it
don't-
there's a establishing school attendance boundaries, is that
yep, it's
The other
assignment
one?
of students to schools,
administrative regulation?
and then attendance boundaries / redistricting.
Okay, assignment of students to schools,
That's the 1028.
and then the other one is, I'm sorry, say it again,
Why can't I find that one? Oh.
Attendance boundaries, redistricting.
attendance boundaries, I can't.
That's
find
where
it.
you
What's
lose
the
me.
school districting, redistricting one?
No, it's
Student
this one.
assignment combination.
Establishing
it, the
school with
attendance
attendance boundary
boundaries,
lines, this one.
Which one is that?
Is that JCAA?
Yes,
Okay,
Oh, there it is, okay. Yeah.
yeah, you're in it, Rob.
okay.
And that's the one that covers,
So do we need all of them in here, or is there something that we can remove so we don't get confused?
I can remove them for you, so you don't get confused.
Just thinking that way we.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure.
Yep.
Alright.
Alright, so the next step is you want Ken and applicable admin to give feedback on that.
Yes, yep.
Cause I think to your point, Ken, like we want to not that the advisory committee couldn't make a recommendation to the policy committee to change that, but we want them to at least have like what our baseline is,
This one,
right?
This is.
That
yes.
also needs to be looked at, but those are two, right, yeah. That's the one, yeah. No, it's the other one, sorry.
So we need this will be on the top of the agenda for February 3rd?
And what we're waiting, like you
Yep.
all are the action moment in that one.
Okay.
Cause ideally we would move it up to the school committee and then it would get approved. And then if in the conversations that the advisory committee has, we need to move forward on it more,
Yes,
but we
but
already
it's
know that
waiting
it's
on
outdated and
you
needs to be
all to
updated. So
decide.
we wanna get those done
Mm-hmm.
to then at
Okay.
least have them have something.
Alright. Sorry to go backwards for a second. Jen, you mentioned
Nope, sorry, we're just finishing policy.
Oh, you are,
Yep, no worries.
sorry, I
It's
just
okay.
was like,
the
I know,
you guys.
McKinney-Vento
right.
changes.
no worries.
Will, who's gonna
I'll
make
take care of
those?
that.
You'll
Yep.
alright, thank you.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay, any other questions, comments?
Mhm.
Okay, and I'll just keep the balance of the policies that are on the agenda on there, and we will get to them as time allows after we discuss these at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay,
Sorry, I'm just making
I will
myself
send you the
notes.
two, so that you know which two they are, okay? Yes? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Rob, can you?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And assign those students to schools.